Gifted and talented children are those who, by virtue of their abilities, are able to perform at a higher level than most others their age. Because of this, they need a different educational program. That's the result of a study performed by state school agencies and approved by the South Park School Board. Thus, the Gifted and Talented program was created. In addition to the classroom studies, gifted students are trained in other areas. For instance, last week, the children at Sally Curtis performed this production of Aladdin's Lamp in both English and Spanish. The students designed the costumes, built the sets, and were completely responsible for the play. Not bad for elementary students. The content of the courses taught to the students is based on major themes, problems, or issues. Process skills are used for problem solving, critical thinking, and research. The key is motivation. Instructors motivate the students to use their gifts to better themselves. So far, the program is being described as a success. But how is a gifted student selected for this class? Well, it's a three-step process. First, regular classes are screened. Data on the students is gathered through standardized test scores, nomination forms, and checklists. Once the screening is completed, it's time to identify the various students. Additional information is gathered on those who have been identified as possible gifted and talented students. Interviews and observations are also made on the candidates. Finally, the selection process begins. One class is selected per grade level from 2nd to 5th. These classes represent about 25% of each grade. These students are then transferred to the Gifted and Talented program. It's new and will probably be changed as time goes by, but it is a commitment by the school district to teach their students in an individual manner, one that will help them prepare to meet the challenge of the not-too-distant future. Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News.
Federal epidemiologists are helping health officials in several counties in South Texas combat what could be a measles outbreak in the state. The potentially dangerous situation involves migrant farm workers. The federal health officials are concerned about the measles outbreak because the farm workers could spread the disease across the country. At the moment, there is no danger of a measles outbreak in our area, but city health officials are urging parents to immunize their children.
Ongoing, program that we have here. And they can come in any Monday from 8 to about 11:30 and 1 to 4:30. And we give diphtheria, whooping cough, and tetanus, which is a 3-in-1 vaccine, polio vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella, either the 3-in-1 or separate doses of measles, mumps, and rubella. And we do tuberculosis and skin testing. And if everyone would follow through and see that their children are immunized, we could wipe out measles. And we have just about wiped out diphtheria and this type of thing.
Last year, the health department immunized 9,040 people, most of them children. Holt says the department has a continuing program with the state health department that monitors potentially dangerous outbreaks of diseases if they should occur. If you have any questions concerning immunizations for your child, call the City of Beaumont Health Department at 838-0680. Mario Gomez, Channel 6 News.
When the mayor opened today's council meeting up for citizen input, he heard immediately about one problem local citizens meet when they try to find an ambulance in Beaumont.
If we have ambulance service here in Beaumont, and if we have an ambulance service, whom shall we contact in case of emergency? Because if you contact the police department, as in the past, they will say, well, hold, and you holding, and the people here is an emergency case, and then finally someone will come on and say, well, hold again, and you're still holding, and that person getting sicker and sicker, and then they say, well, call the fire department. Then the fire department puts you on hold and say, we'll try to contact somebody.
Then came the appeals from citizens and an emergency room physician for the city to act now on improving Beaumont ambulance service.
But I'm concerned with our city councilmen for not reacting to the situation we have here in Beaumont. I do not know what it's going to take for your eyes to be open. I don't know if it's going to take us presenting a corpse before you with a physician beside him saying he wished he had him sooner because he could have saved him.
It should be the point of realizing that Beaumont needs and deserves an organized and efficient ambulance service. We're not asking for something that's a brand new idea, something that hasn't been thought out, something that hasn't been tried to see if it works. We're asking for the chance to get Beaumont into this century of medical care.
Betty Guillory, the owner of Paramedic Ambulance Company, told council members that Dr. Barbie was right. She said local citizens do need better care. The owner of Crawford's Ambulance Service said local ambulance companies are doing their best, but running emergency ambulance service has proved to be just too costly for the private firms. Mrs. Crawford said she is the first to admit that ambulance service is not like it should be, and told the council it's time for the city to subsidize private ambulance service or get an EMS system.
Obviously, there is a need to go beyond what we have presently, and I'm happy to see that the ambulance operators here now have somewhat changed their position as compared to what it was initially. I think that all of us must agree that the service needs to be improved.
Mayor Myers and other council members assured us following the meeting that the city's current ambulance service will be investigated and discussed. The mayor would not say when, but said work on the problem will be done during a future council workshop session, and he said the public will be notified of this meeting.
Promise to tell the truth.
As key witnesses were sworn in, the first appeal in Beaumont's history of the suspension of an ambulance company's permit began. Hugh Wright, designated by the Beaumont City Manager as the health authority, chaired the hearing. Assistant City Attorney Lane Nichols represented the city, and Wallace D. Williams represented the L.M. Williams Ambulance Company. Nichols called the owner of the Beaumont Paramedic Ambulance Company, Betty Guillory, as the city's first witness. Guillory repeated earlier allegations stated in her original complaint that the Williams Ambulance Company had responded to an emergency call on March 26 without notifying Beaumont fire dispatchers. Guillory said that when her company arrived on the scene, after being dispatched by the fire department, that the Williams Company was already loading the victim into an ambulance. The next witness, Beaumont fire dispatcher Alan Gilley, supported Mrs. Guillory's statement. Gilley said that the Williams Company had not informed the fire department by radio that they were making the emergency call, and said the fire department log showed Williams out of service. He also said radio equipment was working properly that day to the best of his knowledge. Wallace Williams then entered two statements into the record. The first official response from the Williams Company since the complaint was filed against them March 26th. One of the statements was from Bill Farrell, a part-time employee of the Williams Company who also works for the city of Beaumont. Farrell, who was with the Williams crew on the incident in question, stated he did not notify Beaumont fire dispatchers that they were making the emergency call because he said the radio frequency was tied up. He also stated that he had not submitted this written explanation earlier because he had talked with someone on the telephone at the health department and thought the matter had been cleared up. Assistant City Attorney Lane Nichols then questioned Kathy Schofield, who has the responsibility for enforcing the ambulance ordinance, about Farrell's reason.
No, I did not.
Schofield also said that when she first informed Farrell of the complaint, that he laughed and said, quote, "We can't call in every time we make a call. It's impossible." The owner of the Williams Company, Lewis Williams Jr., made similar statements to Channel 6 News during our 5-month investigation of the Beaumont ambulance system. The meeting was then closed. Now, Hugh Wright has 10 days to make a decision on Williams' appeal. If the suspension stands, one of the permits of the Williams Company to operate ambulances will be temporarily suspended for 3 days. However, the Williams Company can still appeal that decision to the Beaumont City Council. Reporting for Channel 6 News, I'm Keith Elkins.
The proposed rate increase by GSU was scheduled to go into effect on June 5th. If that had happened, the average monthly residential bill would have increased by $19. City Manager Ray Riley explains why GSU's proposed rate increase was suspended for 120 days.
If the City Council had not taken this action, then the proposed rate increase made by GSU, which would account for about a 36% increase in residential rates, would have been effective June 5th. With the adoption of this ordinance, this now sets aside or suspends temporarily that rate increase.
GSU was granted a rate increase last year, although the electric utility did not get all it had requested. But this proposed increase is larger than last year's, which could mean the city thinks the proposed increase is too high.
GSU must notify the city of the pending rate increase. Upon receipt of that, then we go through the other forms or part of the procedures to allow it or not. In this case, we have declined to accept their proposed rate increase, but rather suspend the rates for 120 days and study that information.
Citizens will have a chance to air their views on the proposed GSU rate increase at a later date. Jim Oliver in Beaumont, Channel 6 News.
Bobby Jack Parham and Jerry Atkins were charged with mail fraud while trying to collect insurance money on a fraudulent fire claim. The arrests came as a result of a joint task force combining the resources of the Beaumont Fire Department and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The two agencies enjoy a good relationship, and that means bad news for potential arsonists.
In the 18 months that we have been working here, along with the Beaumont Fire Department, we have achieved some measure of success.
A large number of fires, say in schools or churches, then that way they can call in the ATF, and they have always been very readily available to come and give assistance.
Last October, we presented a series that focused on organized crime in the Golden Triangle. It was at this time that Special Agent Gonzalez told us of the Special Arson Task Force that was operating here in Beaumont. The quality of the investigation has already shown itself with these arrests, and more are expected soon. Also, the cooperation between the two agencies has also led to a better relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office. They handle the prosecution of the arson cases, and if the task force's investigations continue to result in convictions, arsonists will think twice before torching a building in the Golden Triangle. Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News.
Listen fast.
This is really a fantastic honor, and 12th, that means fantastic. I need both gentlemen. All righty. You got it right now, but I'll call you later. Where'd Henry go to? There's Henry. Then we have some professional time. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Bob Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some
The Neches River Saltwater Project was first proposed and later authorized by Congress in 1976 when area residents expressed concern about controlling water flow on the river during flooding. The Corps of Engineers plans to place an overflow dam of the Neches River just east of Interstate 10. A navigation bypass channel will be placed near the overflow dam. Colonel James Salinger says the project should protect the crops of area farmers.
The primary purpose for the project is to prevent saltwater intrusion up into the agricultural areas, but also it will have benefits of precluding saltwater intrusion into municipal and industrial water supplies for Beaumont. Primarily, though, it's aimed at trying to preclude saltwater intrusion into the water intake structures along the upper part of the Neches River that provide water for irrigation for farming upstream of the project.
Most of the people in attendance were in favor of the Army's plan. The project will cost $34 million and will take about 3 years to complete. Mario Gomez, Channel 6 News.
The Census Bureau says the population of Beaumont increased from 117,550 in 1970 to 118,102 in 1980. An increase of about 550 people for the 10-year period.
This is a fairly small increase, but it's very significant because this represents a reversal of a population decline during the 1960s and the early 1970s. In 1973, the Census Bureau had estimated our population had gotten as low as 114,000. So the population today of 118,100 is a fairly significant indication of a moderate amount of growth.
It's no secret that the city is not happy with these figures. A lawsuit naming the Census Bureau has been filed in district court claiming that the population in Beaumont has been undercounted.
If you apply the percentage rates that they've estimated for the entire country to Beaumont, they may have missed as many as 4,000 people in the city.
An increase of 500 to 600 people is what the Census Bureau says Beaumont's growth is, but if the city gets its way, the Census Bureau will have to prove its findings in court. Jim Oliver in Beaumont, Channel 6 News.
$750,000 in property taxes is at stake for Port Arthur if the new annexation bill goes on to be approved by the Senate. Texas is the only state with a 10.3-mile offshore annexation limit. Others are restricted to 3 miles, and the pending bill would also limit Texas to around 3 miles. Yesterday's House approval of the bill was a victory for oil companies who want to avoid being unnecessarily taxed on their offshore drilling rigs. Port Arthur needs the tax dollars to keep up water and protective services to the rigs, and officials were disappointed.
Of course, I was disappointed, and always disappointed when you lose something like this, regardless of what it is, even though we expected to lose it. We wouldn't, I saw the handwriting on the wall several months ago.
Mayor Sadler says the fight for annexation rights is still alive, though, and that the city is vesting its hope in Senator Carl Parker of Port Arthur.
After all, he has some friendly senators, too, along the coast that's with him. And this senator sponsoring the bill, and Mr. Menden, you know, out of Houston, he's not the most popular senator in Austin, for your information.
At this point in the annexation controversy, it looks as though coastal cities will be forced to shorten their boundaries, and Port Arthur is willing to compromise. They proposed a new bill that would label land more than 5 miles out in the Gulf as industrial districts, meaning owners would pay only 60% of taxes. Meanwhile, the pendulum is swinging in favor of industry, but the annexation bill must still meet with Senate approval, which means that the controversy is still as intense as it ever was. Leslie Brinkley, Channel 6 News.
Only about 7 to 10% of the patients at the Beaumont Neurological Center receive electric shock treatments here. In most cases, it's a last resort. The psychiatrist who administers the treatment, Dr. Lewis Williams, says he uses electric shock only when drugs will not aid in the recovery of severely depressed patients. But a patient's consent is not needed to receive electric shock. The courts can commit him to a hospital and leave the type of treatment up to his physician. But several former mental patients in Texas who have received electric shock want to change this law. They argue that shock treatment damages the brain and should only be used with a patient's consent. Dr. Lewis Williams, on the other hand, thinks a bill outlawing shock treatment in Texas is ridiculous.
I think that for any legislation to, across the board, outlaw any method of treatment is not appropriate. There are still, at the present time, legitimate, important, and sometimes life-saving uses for EST.
Dr. Williams adds the patient may not be able to make a responsible decision. He contends that the answer must lie, therefore, with the physician. He does admit, however, that electric shock can be hazardous.
Well, Barbara, it's hazardous to the degree that drugs are used in the process of administering electroshock, and there are memory disturbances associated with the use of electroshock primarily in the after period, and these are significant memory disturbances, and therefore, yes, there is a hazard involved in the use of EST.
Barbara Bedrick, Channel 6 News.
Dr. L.J. Lawrence, Public Information Officer for NASA's Johnson Space Center, was the guest speaker at the annual Transportation Week luncheon here in Beaumont. Lawrence says the future of the shuttle program looks increasingly good, that 60 flights are booked up through the middle of this decade, and he says the next shuttle flight should be around October 17th or 18th, maybe sooner. The shuttle will enable scientists to put satellites into space at a greater and more economical rate. Will allow space industrialization, meaning the development of the perfect crystal, better alloys, and medically more pure serums. Many major companies are interested in the possibilities the shuttle has to offer. Will it be a likely source of transportation and mean more jobs for the everyday citizen?
Very definitely. We're going to be putting people into space in the foreseeable future who never would have thought they'd had an opportunity to go into space. Plumbers, electricians, construction workers, hard hats. We're going to be conducting a lot of business in space in the very near future. And we're even, some of NASA's centers in California are now looking at tolerance levels for elderly people in their 60s and 70s to see if, what sort of adaptability they would have for spaceflight.
Lawrence says it no longer takes a strong, sturdy test flight pilot to go into space. Terry Elliott, Channel 6 News.
They came from this side over here. No, they come. I took the service road on 19. They were coming from over here. And they was coming from over here. The guy that hit him just took off, huh? Yeah.
"30 puppies were put to sleep in late April here at the Humane Education Council of Southeast Texas. The 30 dogs were put to sleep because they had all contracted an oftentimes fatal disease called the parvovirus.
We stopped taking in puppies, and all the ones that were infected, then we euthanized them.
Okay.
But after 2 weeks, we're taking puppies again now, and so far we're not having any trouble with parvo.
The parvovirus epidemic is twice as bad this year as it was last year, and it attacks puppies more frequently than older dogs.
It causes vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration, and most of the time to death if they're not treated. They get it from infected stool from other dogs. They should be vaccinated if they're not already vaccinated.
Veterinarians suggest that pet owners have their dogs vaccinated every 6 months, since the virus is resistant to the vaccine on a long-term basis. Dog owners need to be aware of the virus's prevalence this year, but will also be relieved to know that the virus does not affect cats or humans. It's a shame that 30 puppies had to be put to sleep here, but at least that prevented the parvovirus from spreading to other animals. Leslie Brinkley, Channel 6 News. Puppy mills are common across the state of Texas, and they're a lucrative business for those who want to exploit dogs for selling and breeding purposes. So what are puppy mills?
Oh, they're just really gross. They're places where they just breed hundreds of animals. They're not the least bit concerned about bloodlines or whether they're even purebreds. They send the puppies in the most awful conditions to pet shops and things like that.
A new bill before the Texas legislature would help do away with puppy mills by requiring owners of 5 or more dogs to acquire a license each year and to meet new health standards. Animals would have to have adequate room to at least turn around, have waste cleared out of their living area, and have protection from poor weather. But many are opposed to the new kennel law.
Those people who breed dogs and show dogs might be affected by the fact that they would have to get a license to breed dogs, which I don't think they should mind at all. They're all getting alarmed over the fact that someone said it would be $90 a year for a license, but this is only an estimate. They haven't come up with anything yet. And I would think that anybody who cares about dogs and cares about animals would not mind having a license if that helped do away with some of the puppy mills.
Leslie Brinkley, Channel 6 News.
This was the 36th annual shareholders meeting for Gulf States Utilities. The shareholders were given a complete overview on the present financial situation, which GSU officials report to be stable. Despite some economic problems, GSU had a reported income of almost $100 million last year. The company is also building a nuclear power plant in Westlake, Louisiana. Despite being 2 months behind in construction, GSU Board Chairman Don Crawford says the Riverbend project should be completed on schedule, and it will be a great addition to the company.
It's an expensive plant, very expensive to build. Once we get it completed, it's going to be a great plant. The fuel cost will be very low, probably about a third of what we'd have to pay for oil and gas. So if we can get the thing financed and built, we're going to have a wonderful plant here. And it's something that I think the company should feel very proud of.
However, GSU may face a challenge in the future. At present, GSU only buys 10% of its total power output from other utilities. But after 1984, GSU will have to look for other sources of energy. Mario Gomez, Channel 6 News.
American Airlines asked the Civil Aeronautics Board to eliminate joint fares by claiming they cost the airline too much money. Joint fares allow commuter passengers to fly at a reduced rate to a larger airport when the passenger transfers to a major airline. Presently, Metro Airlines offers a joint fare deal with Continental Airlines, but Air Texana is presently negotiating for a joint fare system of their own. Public Relations Advisor for Air Texana, Ann Lee, says the joint fare system is not only essential for the future of Air Texana, but it's important for local air travel in general.
Joint fares mean a number of things to this area. It would really be a bad situation for us, Jefferson County and the surrounding area, to lose joint fares. A lot of what is going to come out in this rulemaking procedure depends on what the area does toward that situation.
Air Texana Airlines announced they're expanding their nonstop service to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. The airline will continue to fly to Dallas Love Field after the stop at DFW. The move will allow Air Texana to join up with other major airlines and will allow expanded air service for Golden Triangle passengers. Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News. The DC-3 has been called the Goonie Bird, not exactly a complimentary title, but the DC-3 has another name. It's the most dependable aircraft ever flown. It's been through 3 wars, including being used as a military transport in Vietnam. It was this bit of history that brought these South Park students to the Jefferson County Airport today to fly the DC-3. Air Texana Airlines presently uses the planes for their commercial flights and offered the use of the plane to the students to give them the feel of the aircraft.
About 1933, this fine airplane came about, and it's still flying today. Air Texana has 2 of them, and we asked them if we could take a ride, and they said yes, so we're here.
As you might expect, the aerospace students were a combination of eager and hesitant about the whole thing. The flight lasted about 20 minutes, and when they returned, the students realized that something doesn't have to be new to be good. In the case of the DC-3, that was the story today. Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News.
Bowie Junior High School 8th graders constructed it as part of Beaumont USA. The program is sponsored by the Beaumont Art Museum and the Beaumont Heritage Society and is being taught as a component of the arts-related curriculum in 4 8th grade classes in the city. The students were guided in their 3-month endeavor by their history and art teachers, a local architect, and a Beaumont Art Museum curator. And although the final creation is short a few essentials like a fire station and a hospital,
yours is a nice, clean city. It appears that there's nothing that's a problem. I would like to be mayor of your city.
Children started from scratch after a walking tour downtown and a look at architectural styles in the city. Taking cardboard boxes, popsicle sticks, pieces of wood, and plaster, they made a city in 3 months, complete with a park, a mall, entertainment, and a residential section. The house, designed by Carl Jenkins and Greg Sales, is a reproduction of one on CBS primetime show, Dallas.
We saw South Fork, and we just decided to try to make ours like that.
The architect behind the tall Southwestern Bell building.
We want to have more room in there, because I've been in a telephone company before, and I've seen them people, you know, double sitting and stuff, and I think it's kind of crowded, and I can see it, and they can have a place for, like, the supervisors to lounge in and stuff like that, you know. I just made it tall, because I thought it should be tall.
Barbara Bedrick, Channel 6 News. Aubrey and Willie Roper are rock collectors who drove over from Houston for the Rock and Gem Show at Beaumont Civic Center this weekend. This afternoon, they began the most difficult part of dealing in rocks, the unpacking. It will take them 6 hours to get every rock out on display. But Aubrey is a man who wants to spend the rest of his life doing something just for the enjoyment. On Monday, he quit his job as a banker to take on rock collecting full-time. What started out as a hobby for he and his wife 7 years ago grew into, as he calls it, the monster it is today, one that intrigues him.
When we slice a Brazilian agate slab, such as this, we find all kinds of formations within that stone. Yes, it's exciting because we never know what kind of beauty we're going to find in there. And there's no 2 pieces ever exactly alike. That, to me, is fascinating.
Years of collecting and buying rocks have given Aubrey his present array of gems and stones, some more than 150 million years old.
The dinosaur bone is just a fascinating stone in that the bone cells are preserved in the petrification process.
One of Aubrey's favorites is the palmwood, the state stone of Texas. Barbara Bedrick, Channel 6 News.
Where do you think it's best for a baby to be born, in the hospital or at home? Well, more babies are born at home than you might think. It's estimated that 4% of the babies born in Texas are delivered at home by a midwife. So the Texas legislature thought it was important to regulate home births. Midwives would be prohibited from using prescription drugs or forceps, which a local midwife says she's never used anyway.
I've been a midwife for 5.5 years, and I had delivered over 200 babies.
The bill would also establish an optional training course for midwives. Maggie Baker says that the 3 or 4 midwives in the Golden Triangle, along with some in Houston, already formed an education group on their own. What Maggie's most concerned about is the fact that the bill would require a midwife exam to be passed and the state health department to keep a central list of approved lay midwives. Some women who may be known as excellent midwives or may have delivered hundreds of babies may not be able to pass the exam because they don't speak English fluently or may not have an extensive educational background. Although most midwives will recommend a doctor for prenatal care, they find that most medical professionals will not cooperate with the midwife.
Oh yes, they definitely don't want to know that a midwife is delivering a baby, and they tell them that they're crazy, that that baby could have died. You know, when that was their own free will that they were having that baby at home.
Nonetheless, Maggie feels a baby born right at home is more natural and rewarding for the family.
They're happy to handle a baby right after it's being born, and I see people cry after the baby's born, really, of happiness.
Leslie Brinkley, Channel 6 News.
Senate will come to order. Secretary, call the roll.
In 1943, politicians gathered here at the state capitol and passed a law regulating emergency ambulances. That law was very basic, requiring only one attendant with basic first aid skills, a first aid kit and traction splints, and a vehicle with warning lights and siren. 2 years later, in 1945, politicians tried to upgrade that same law, and have tried to do so over the last 19 legislative sessions. But the law remains the same. Today, there is still another move to modernize that 38-year-old law. Senator Bill Sarpolius has sponsored legislation designed to upgrade statewide emergency medical services, which will give the state health department the authority to phase in necessary changes. Changes State EMS Director Charles Gregory says are absolutely necessary now to cut out medical abuses and hopefully save lives.
We are receiving reports of people without training or incomplete training, representing themselves as EMTs or paramedics who monitor the public service channels with their scanners, proceed to the scene of accidents on their own volition, attempt to get involved in the care of the acutely disabled people, often causing harm.
But again, until you get some real teeth behind your particular division of the health department here, you can't do anything about this.
That's correct.
This legislation would give Dr. Gregory and the EMS division of the state health department the teeth necessary to stop these types of abuses. That is, if it becomes law. Sarpolius' bill has already passed the state Senate, and now it's awaiting action by the House of Representatives. If the politicians pass the bill this time around, it will bring Texas into line with 48 other states who have already passed comparable EMS legislation. Reporting for Channel 6 News, I'm Keith Elkins.
This is my wife, Bobby County, who was just introduced to you, but we think she'll have a few. She should come up and say.
You already are, aren't you?
Oh, yes. All scheduled to be here just a little bit later this morning. We'd like for it to be. we have some more gifts.
You say 2 beers, 1
McDonald Gymnasium in Beaumont was filled to capacity this morning as commencement ceremonies were held for 817 graduating seniors. University President Robert Kimball made a brief statement in which he told the students, "The rest of your education has, in most cases, only just begun." And then it was time for the proud parents, friends, and relatives to observe the presentation of the degrees.
With honors, Mary Rena Schaefer Kimball, Kevin Paul LeBlanc, Jake Allen LeMaster.
The top 2 graduating seniors in this class were Susan Hickman, an accounting major from Beaumont, and James Bracken, a chemical engineer from Livingston. Similar exercises were also held at the Lamar, Port Arthur, and Orange campuses. Jim Oliver in Beaumont, Channel 6 News. We were invited to ride along with the Coast Guard and some of its reserves this morning. We boarded a boat on Pleasure Island and set sail for Texaco Island. The weather was not too good this morning, but these guys are used to it. During the trip to Texaco Island, the men on this boat were continuously observing the surroundings.
Of course, on the way down, we looked for any pollution that might have been along the way, or any boats, shrimp boats that might have been on the hot boat list. Once we got to Texaco Island area, then we just generally look at everything going on, see if there's any safety violations, and then we intended on boarding these barges over here that are unloading oil.
Upon arriving at Texaco Island, an inspection crew examined these barges for violations.
We've got a list of things that we check on barges and other types of boats. So the purpose of this was reserves working with the regulars, actually doing the actual boardings for the Coast Guard.
Now, this is not the only thing the Coast Guard does.
No, we do search and rescue work. We do law enforcement work as far as federal laws that have to do with the waterways.
After the inspection was complete, we boarded the boat and headed back to Pleasure Island. Now you have some idea of what these men go through every day. Jim Oliver in Port Arthur, Channel 6 News.
He's come a long way since his recent flight into space aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. Captain Bob Crippen, test flight pilot and one of the 2 pilots of Columbia, touched down at Jefferson County Airport this morning. City officials and other dignitaries were there to greet him and whisk him away to a parade held in his honor in downtown Beaumont. Area high school bands marched and marched and marched down the main stretch of Main Street. Of course, there were also twirlers, those representing our armed forces, fast-stepping drill teams, a beauty queen, jets, and hundreds of onlookers, all present to honor and steal a peek of astronaut Bob Crippen. You see, Crippen was born in Beaumont. Everyone here can be proud of that. Following the parade and motorcade, Beaumont city officials and astronaut Crippen gathered on stage to say a few words to the crowd. Crippen stated that the Columbia mission is a major step in making spaceflight commonplace.
It was the first of at least 4 orbiters that we're building that is introducing a new era into the United States and to the world as far as space travel is concerned. We have now developed the capability to get in and out of space easily, something that will allow for many of you young folks out there to have access to space as commonplace as many of us have in getting in our automobiles and going down to the corner store these days.
However, he admitted there were some unforeseen problems during the Columbia flight.
The only things that we had of significance that broke was a little tape recorder that was recording some instrumentation for us, and our potty. Well, you can't have everything work.
To show his thanks to Beaumont, Crippen honored Mayor Maury Myers with a plaque designed with the flag and insignia that Columbia carried into space. Terry Elliott, Channel 6 News.
The day's festivities were held to honor astronaut Bob Crippen, but it was Bob Crippen, NASA employee, who spoke to reporters this morning. Crippen defended the space program's billion-dollar budget and compared it with other government programs.
The space program is a very small percentage of the total thing. In fact, if you take the health and special social services budget at this time, if they took our budget, we could operate that system for 10 days.
NASA has completed a thorough inspection of the space shuttle and has set September 30th as the next launch date. Crippen was asked what modifications would be made on the next shuttle. Specifically, he was asked if problems with the heat shield tiles would be fixed.
And we will be talking about eliminating some of those in the future. The second craft that is being built right now, because it is physically being built, has the same tile layout that the Columbia does. But we are talking about doing a retrofit to both the spacecraft in the future that will take some of those tiles that we have now in that particular area and sort of replace them by a cloth-like thermal protection system that is much lighter and much easier to apply.
But the overall tone of the Beaumont Natives Day was optimism about the future and the feeling that even for the present, Americans are finding a pride in themselves after the first successful space shuttle mission.
I think that people, whether they understand the space program or not, or whether they question, well, maybe we should be spending that money somewhere else, like we were just discussing, that they do feel a personal pride in what we've accomplished.
Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News.
May 18th, 1981, Bob Crippen Day in Beaumont as the former astronaut returned to his home. And we wondered what the day meant to the Golden Triangle residents who lined the parade route. Why are you here?
For the fun of it. The kids were really the ones. They've talked about it at school, and it's all I've heard all week. You know, let's go downtown to see the parade.
It's a very important day.
Well, got to at school, plus my brother's in the South Park band. I guess he is a hero to all the kids.
Leslie Copley, Channel 6 News.
From his cell on death row at the state penitentiary, convicted capital murderer Joe Dugas recently filed a $2 million civil lawsuit charging that officials of the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office beat him and forced him to sign a confession. After that, the DA's office filed a motion requesting that Dugas's petition be dismissed because he had not taken the proper legal steps. U.S. Federal Judge Robert Parker, however, has ruled that the Dugas issue does merit an evidentiary hearing. He has ordered U.S. Magistrate Charles Ruth to conduct such a hearing here in Eastern District Federal Court in Beaumont. No date has been set for that hearing, but we'll keep you posted on what happens. Wayne Sparrow, Channel 6 News.
This is the area in which the radio towers were to be built. As you can see, this is also a residential area. The towers were scheduled to be built in back of these homes, but at the Planning Commission meeting, residents from that area spoke strongly against such a proposal.
So today I'm asking you, please, and those of you that voted for this the last time, please vote against it. We don't want it. It's not good for us. It's going to just mess up everything. We have worked hard for what we have today. And to have 3 or 4 people sit behind a desk and tell us, hey, we are going to do etc. I deplore such an action.
The zone change and special use permit to build the radio towers were for Security Broadcasting Company, which owns a local radio station. However, because of all the complaints, the Planning Commission voted to deny construction of the towers at the North End location. Despite the outcome of today's vote, this item will still go to City Council for their consideration, and they have the option to approve it or deny it. Jim Oliver in Beaumont, Channel 6 News.
Texas will gain 3 new congressional seats due to the increased population over the past 10 years. This has resulted in a carving effort now underway in the Texas House aimed at creating 3 new districts. House Speaker Billy Clayton has said the redistricting effort will be easy since there will be no districts where 2 U.S. representatives must run against each other. But Clayton obviously made that statement before the House voted to approve a less than perfect redistricting plan. 9th District Congressman Jack Brooks will apparently gain a new resident to his district, 22nd District Congressman Ron Paul. Paul's Brazoria County home is included in Brooks's new district. If this situation is allowed to become permanent, Paul would then have to run for office against Brooks in order to return to Washington. Here's a look at Brooks's new district. As you can see, District 9 borders District 22. It is here at the border that Paul's home is located. There is more good news for Brooks today. It appears that he will retain a portion of Harris County. That area has proved in the past to be the key to his re-election bids. A loss of that area would have put his chances at another term in doubt based on past election returns. It'll be a while before the redistricting plan gains final approval by the Texas legislature. What is interesting at this point, however, is that in the early stages of the plan, most of the problems seem to be focusing on the Southeast Texas region. Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News.
Facing a possible death sentence, William John Fisher of Bridge City pleaded guilty before 260th District Court Judge Don Burgess and has accepted a sentence of life in prison for the death of 18-year-old LaVonda Fontenot. Fisher is believed to have taken Fontenot from a Beaumont nightclub to an area near Orangefield where she was beaten to death and, according to an autopsy, raped. Her body was discovered January 9th. In order for Fisher's plea to be presented to the court, the DA's office dropped the charge from capital murder to first-degree murder. By the court accepting the plea bargain agreement, Orange County taxpayers saved anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, the cost of trying a capital murder case. Official sentencing will take place July 10th. From Orange, Wayne Sparrow, Channel 6 News.
The Port Arthur Independent School District loses between 30 and 40 teachers a year to some other line of work. It's a situation that's becoming increasingly acute in that city as well as across the state. Even the stronghold of female instructors appears to be going by the wayside.
Teaching was considered to be a good, safe area for female employment for many years. We're finding that females are going into other lines of work now. Also, there are salaries that are better in industry that's causing people to leave the teaching profession. Also, student discipline this day and time.
While the students here at one of Port Arthur's elementary schools are losing more and more teachers every year, the district is doubling up on recruiting to make sure the quality of their education doesn't go down.
We have expanded our recruiting this year. It has been traditional for us to recruit the state of Louisiana and Texas, but now we have expanded into Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Mississippi. We are recruiting approximately 50 college campuses per year.
McBee claims that classroom size has not greatly increased in the PAISD, and therefore the teacher shortage is not taking away a quality education here. The answer to the shortage, McBee says, lies with the state. They must start paying teachers higher salaries more in line with industry and business. But other educators contend the schools must make stronger efforts to improve discipline problems, another factor that discourages students from selecting teaching as a profession. If something isn't done to attract more teachers in the profession, educators fear an unprecedented teacher shortage will be felt across the nation. In Port Arthur, Barbara Bedrick, Channel 6 News.
It is work like this that led council to take such action. In the past, utility companies or contractors were not required to repair the streets that they damaged, although most of them did anyway. Council's action was more or less a protective measure for the city.
Basically, we want the assurance that if there is work done that causes boring or tunneling or disruption of our thoroughfares or sidewalks, etc., we want to know that we're spending an awful lot of money to resurface, reconstruct, and rebuild, and we want the burden of responsibility to be where it belongs and see that it's exactly as it was before the work was done.
Have you been having problems with this in the past?
I think it's something that requires an awful lot of policing, and I think now this would make it more self-policing because it would be a violation.
Before work can start by a utility company or contractor, a permit must be obtained from the city, but this new ordinance calls for emergency work to be performed without a permit, provided a report on the work is made available to the city afterwards. Jim Oliver in Beaumont, Channel 6 News.
Right now we're at a little peak. We're having a few burglaries and had one or two armed robberies. But
there has been a slight increase in crime in Pinehurst recently. Police Chief Don Hartsfield says crime statistics do go up and down, and despite the large number of firings in the department, the city's 3,500 residents still have adequate police protection.
Matter of fact, we've even had double people out on the street. Our officers have volunteered and come in and worked and not been paid for working. Some of them have been paid overtime, and we've had officers come in who've not even been paid for the duties they perform for the city.
At full strength, the department has 6 officers, including the chief, and 5 dispatchers. Right now, the department needs a dispatcher and an officer.
We're accepting applications for these positions. We have, at this time, a man who's an officer who's going to start part-time for us before long.
From Pinehurst, Wayne Sparrow, Channel 6 News.
There is a serious medical manpower shortage for Port Arthur's lower-income population. But that shortage is gradually being remedied with the addition of new services.
A year ago there was one. When we opened up the community health clinic, we brought in 2 additional physicians. So now we have 3 primary care physicians for a population of approximately 20,000. That is not as good as you would like to see, but it's a whole lot better than it was.
Now the clinic is able to handle routine cases such as flu vaccines and broken arms. But more serious cases require a patient to drive 88 miles to free or below-cost medical clinics in Galveston, a drive that's impossible for many to make. In general, Clark says lower-income families do not seek medical help as soon as middle-class groups. and Port Arthur's poor tend to rely on the city's clinic or emergency rooms for their health care. So future developments in Port Arthur's indigent health program are on the agenda.
In August or September, we have a National Health Service Corps dentist who has been assigned to us. That'll give us 2 full-time dentists.
So Port Arthur is gradually working toward improved health care. But according to a report released by the Greater East Texas Health Systems Agency, Old Town Port Arthur is still seriously behind in the number of available doctors for its people. Leslie Brinkley, Channel 6 News.
State epidemiologists have confirmed that a 42-year-old man from western Jefferson County contracted cholera in the early part of May in one of the county's bayous or saltwater marshes. The man is now reported well, but health officials are still trying to determine how he got the disease. The epidemiologists feel that the case is most probably linked to improperly cooked seafood.
Any seafood or any fish that's in contaminated water and that's improperly cooked could take this organism from the dirty water and effectively transmit the disease to man.
The man became ill with gastroenteritis May 6th. He had a fever, loss of appetite, and very severe diarrhea, and was taken to John Seeley Hospital in Galveston in a serious condition. Successfully treated him, and officials do not fear any future cases in Jefferson County.
As you all realize, we have sophisticated sewage disposal systems in this part of the world. We don't expect there to be any secondary cases. The medical community has been alerted and has helped us in trying to find other cases of cholera, and no evidence of disease has become apparent.
They have collected samples of water in county bayous, saltwater marshes, and area water supplies to determine if the cholera bacteria is located there. So far, their investigation indicates the cholera case is not related to contaminated city or county water systems or restaurants in the city-county area. Health officials advise, though, for anyone fishing in county bayous and marshes to be sure and properly cook their marine life before eating, because health officials say you're taking special risk on anything you eat from these waters. Barbara Bedrick, Channel 6 News.
Employees of the Orange County Ambulance Service were recently asked to fill out cards indicating whether or not they wanted to unionize. According to Bud Mackey, business agent of the Golden Triangle Public Employees Union, enough of the roughly 36 ambulance employees said yes to warrant further action.
I sent a letter to the ambulance service requesting voluntary recognition, that we had enough people signed up to get voluntary recognition. Did not hear anything.
Orange County Ambulance Service officials told Channel 6 they would not voluntarily sanction a union. Further action has thus been taken.
I filed a petition with the National Labor Relations Board in Houston for them to come down and conduct an election for the employees at the ambulance service.
Before any election is held, the National Labor Relations Board must verify that there are enough employees in favor of a union to call an election on the issue. We'll keep you posted on what happens. From Orange, Wayne Sparrow, Channel 6 News.
A cloud of yellowish-looking smoke is still flooding out of a gas well 5 miles north of Highway 90 near China.
The well blew about 8 o'clock yesterday morning, and they had advised me and also some other usemen yesterday that they would have it capped off by 12 o'clock today. I was advised again it will not be capped off today, maybe tomorrow.
Lear Petroleum Exploration owns the well, and they're trying to remove a rig from atop the well before the leak can be stopped. Jerry Cruz of Lear Petroleum claims the only danger involves the gas igniting and catching fire. According to Constable Chester Benoit, the escaping gas is blowing directly over Nome in China. Now, the people living there have been notified that the well is blown and that there is the possibility of an evacuation, but no action has been taken yet. Trees to the south of the leaking well withered and browned under the wave of gas. But little else is known as to the origin of the leak, except that it's hoped the flow of gas can be capped off by sometime tomorrow. Leslie Brinkley, Channel 6 News.
In a full-page decision released today, 60th District Judge Gary Sanderson has ruled that the trustees of the Beaumont Independent School District have acted in compliance with the professional negotiations agreement with the Beaumont Classroom Teachers Association. Judge Sanderson has also ordered that the Beaumont Classroom Teachers Association pay all legal expenses when the two went to court last week. Superintendent Corbett says that he is pleased with today's decision.
The decision by Judge Sanderson simply said that the Board of Education has the final authority in any action presented to it. And in this particular case, the board acted upon the amendments presented to it and unanimously turned down the amendments, choosing not to amend the present agreement.
What this means basically depends, I suppose, on how the board interprets what happened. The judge did not say that what we were asking for was illegal or even ill-advised. It is still within the board's power to do this, and it is still within the board's power to reestablish the kind of communications process that we've had in the past.
BCTA President Larry Josh says the teachers may appeal the judge's decision. At the Jefferson County Courthouse, Mario Gomez, Channel 6 News.
Senate Bill 315, referred to as the Texas Medical Practices Act, is alive and well in committee at the 67th State Legislature. Apparently, that's good news for the Texas Medical Association and bad news for the Health Freedom Council. The Medical Association is backing the new bill, which sets up stringent penalties for practicing medicine without a license. The Health Freedom Council is a statewide organization with a local chapter in Port Neches. They are dead set against the new measure and have set up a lobby in Austin to defeat it. Last March, Beaumont pharmacist J.J. Lavoie told Channel 6 News reporter Barbara Bedrick that if the new bill were passed, his job as a pharmacist would be in danger.
With this new law, I could not do that. I could not help you in any way. You would have come up and pick up whatever you want. And if you walked out of the store and bled to death, there's not a thing I could do about it.
Those for the measure countered this claim, saying no changes would be made as far as pharmacists were concerned. But now the issue has gone farther than standard medical practices. The Health Freedom Council wants the right to allow treatment such as DMSO, acupuncture, massage therapists, midwives, and religious healers. There are 12 days left to decide this issue. After that, lawmakers will turn their attention to future health care costs. If the Health Freedom Bill is approved, that's more programs that will have to be funded. And it's possible that health care costs will become even more expensive for all of us. Bruce Cates, Channel 6 News.